Welcome back, everybody. Derrick Soo, your East Oakland advocate. Hey, do you believe in ghosts? Have you seen a ghost? Are you living with a ghost? Uh, Before we get into that, uh, I'm going to be moving on to a different part of my Jeet Kune talk. And I'm going to talk about the Trinity of Jeet Kune Do, my Trinity, which is the body, mind, and soul. Soul being spirit. And so I'm going to talk about some things about the unseen world, ghosts. Have you experienced ghosts, seen a ghost, or even lived with a ghost? I have, and I'm going to talk about those experiences, and they're not that far off. But a lot of this, what I'm going to be talking about with the unseen world, is because of my Jeet Kune Do training in the spiritual world, and that is Chi, CHE, energy. And so I'm going to be talking about Chi development and how you can actually learn how to do a lot of the things that you saw on Star Wars, because a lot of those the Force is real, and so I'm going to talk about that and how you can develop your own Force, and so that you can read and be ahead of the curve in case somebody's trying to harm you. This is part of my Jeet Kune Do training over the years. It took me a long time to develop this a skill where I could read chi as far as 25 yards. I can I can feel the person's hostileness or their friendliness. There's even been times when I was living on the street where I was busy doing something. Somebody simply walked up to the door of my shelter, and I called them by name without ever turning around to look at who they were. Is because I could feel and I knew their chi, their energy. And so I'm going to tell you and show you how to develop that. But for right now, I'm going to talk about my experiences, two experiences where I had an experiences with the unseen world, otherwise known as ghosts or a presence. One of the earlier ones, and very personal to me, was came in just before my birthday. It was February 5th, actually. It was February 5th. No, take that back. February 3rd. February 3rd, um, when this happened. And so it was middle or near midnight. It was 11:30 at night, and I was asleep because I was getting ready to go to work, getting my sleep for the day, and then get up and get ready to go to work. Back then I was getting up at 4:30 in the morning, shower, clean up, and then out the door by 4:35 and heading to the South Bay to my office in the South Bay. And so anyway, at 11:30 that night, I was awakened by a tapping. I mean, just like this, just very light tapping on my shoulder, and my eyes were closed, and it's like, who is tapping on my shoulder? I opened my eyes. There's nothing there, nobody there. I'm looking around, looking around. I don't see anything, but I said, okay, well, maybe I was just dreaming that or imagining it. So I closed my eyes. The moment I closed my eyes, it started again. And I opened up my eyes, and there's nothing there. I mean, there is nothing there, but I can feel a presence. I feel a presence, but I don't know who or what it is. And it woke me up. It was very intentional in what it was doing, that ghost. And so anyway, the second time that I woke up, I was just looking around, and I'm looking in the direction where I'm sensing this energy. And I said, okay, look, I've got to go to work early in the morning. Please leave me alone so I can go to sleep. I feel your presence. I acknowledge you are here. And it stopped. Uh, I rolled back over. Nothing came, nothing further for the rest of the night. And that was it. And then the next morning at exactly 4:30, my business phone rings on my hip. And that is a number that it is known only by a very few people, and it's an emergency. And at the time, there was nothing going on, and so I just simply I just hit the button, turned the phone off. I said, it's got to be a wrong number. Nobody calls me at 4:30 in the morning. 15 seconds later, 15 seconds later, my house phone rings. Yeah, I still had one of those old-fashioned things hanging on the wall. So the house phone rings, and first thought that comes into mind, uh-oh, this is going to be bad. Whoever is trying to reach me is very serious, and it's a very serious situation because at the time, there were less than 20 people that had both my business phone and my home phone at the same time. 20 people was all that I had on that list. And so when I pick up the phone, it was Oakland police officer. He identified himself and told me, I have some bad news. I'm here at your parents' home. And as soon as he said parents' home, I think, oh my God, my parents were murdered in the middle of the night. And that was first thought. And he said, I have bad news about your mother. She passed away during the night. And so with that bit of information, I put two and two together. 11:30 was when she passed. And what she was doing was letting me know that she had passed and that she was leaving. She was going to be permanently leaving, but she wanted to say her final goodbye to me. Well, actually, it didn't end up being a final goodbye because later that day, after we had got her body to the mortuary and we assembled the family to talk about the internment and the services and everything, one of my nieces simply said, saw grandma deceased, and that was her first time seeing somebody deceased. And so it's very traumatic for young folks, and especially when they're really small. I believe my niece who said that, she was barely 5 at the time when grandma passed away. And the thing was that my youngest niece, she was so scared, and my sister didn't explain death to her very well, and so she had a hard time dealing with it. And while we were there, watching over mom's body there at the mortuary, and the family is assembled, the niece, she blurted out, I don't want to go to grandma's memorial. And first thought, I said, uh-oh, she said that right next to grandma. And grandma, while she's deceased, I knew that she was in the room because I could feel her chi, her energy was still there. And so anyway, later that night, that niece was visited by grandma. I mean, terrified this 5-year-old. Traumatized her, but really made a presence known to the niece that she was not happy that she said what she said, that she wasn't coming to her memorial. And what the niece ran into her mother's room and said, Mom, grandma's here and she's really mad at me. She is mad at me. And my sister, being an unbeliever, like many, uh, said that, I think you just had a bad dream and you need to go back to bed. Well, for 1 week, that niece never went back into her bedroom except for getting clothes or things that she actually needed. And it wasn't until after the funeral, the memorial for my mother, that things settled down, and that niece was in attendance for that service. So grandma's spirit, her spiritual side, her soul was now satisfied, and so uh, we haven't heard anything since the memorial, and everything's been done. Mom was interned into her niche at Chapel of the Chimes, and so that was a very personal experience for me, because number one, I knew Mom had passed on before I even officially knew, and um, then seeing and hearing and speaking with my niece about the incident uh, in the middle of the night where Grandma visited her, really freaked her out, and it took a lot of talking to calm her down, and then also 1 week, and the services, and the niece made sure she was there at the memorial because she did not want Grandma visiting her every night from henceforth. But the next one actually was here on the street, and when I was first on the street, I had befriended another homeless person who was into martial arts. In fact, it was my friend Sleepy. His real name was Mike Comero. He was from Louisiana. His mother was from Louisiana, I should say, but Mike was actually born and raised here in Oakland. He had a lot of issues. Um, I won't get into that, but anyway, he had passed on. He literally um, drank himself into the ground. He had uh, chronic heart failure, and it was ugly towards the end. The final month of his life was very uncomfortable for me, and to actually find him deceased one morning and then calling 911 and everything, it was very traumatic for me. But for some reason, while I was doing the CPR that 911 was asking me to do, and that first push, and that air that came out of it, the word that he uttered, it shocked me, because it was like he was talking to me when I did that first chest compression. It was like his final words, and I couldn't quite make it out, but it says, "Leave me alone." That's what it sounded like. Leave me alone, because he was satisfied that he was no longer under the turmoil and the mental trauma that he was going through at the time. But uh, after that, and he had passed away before Christmas, and that was the sad part. Months later, I have friends and people that visit me, and Mike, if you remember, had that train caboose, that tiny home that was given to him, and I had it attached to the end of the shelter, because Mike was watching one end of the shelter, and I was watching the other end, and so we each had our separate bedrooms. He had a door for his bedroom. I did not. But anyway, I would occasionally have people over and guests, and then all of a sudden somebody said, "Who's that in the your tiny house?" And only one person ever occupied that tiny home up until that point, and that was Mike. I said, "Oh, that's probably just Mike you saw," and or I call him Sleepy. For those that knew him by his street name, was Sleepy. I said, that was probably Sleepy that you saw. And what? Because all of a sudden, I said Sleepy, and then the person's like, yeah, and they're all big-eyed at me. It's like, what? They're looking at me. As how can he be looking at you? How can you can see him? He said, yeah, he's looking at me. And that didn't happen just once. That happened many times. And so I truly believe that while Mike was deceased, his spiritual side, his soul, was still stuck here in that space, because that was the only safe place that he knew for years, and where he was not judged. But yet he was still in a purgatory, so to speak, because he can't move on and he can't come back. So he's literally in purgatory. So those are the two things, the two most recent unseen world experiences that I have. But I'm also going to say that because of my chi training, that opens more sensories of myself, that I'm able to pick up and feel these energies that still exist and are still, for whatever reason, are still here on this earth until whenever. And I do believe in ghosts. I've seen ghosts. I've also seen UFOs. I was with a very close friend when we saw the UFO. We were traveling to an event out of the area, and it was a multi-day travel. But in the middle of the night, we're just out talking, having no drinks. This was 3:30 in the morning, because we had been awakened by a skunk eating our stuff, and so we had to get rid of the skunk. But then we noticed this blinking light in the sky, and both of us are looking at it. Then all of a sudden, in that sky, it moved like that much in a snap. And then we looked at each other like, did you just see that? And my friend, he's looking, wow, did we really see that? Yeah. So that was the closest encounter that we had for UFO. But thinking that we're alone in this universe, and that once you're dead, you're dead. That's not true. And I'm going to teach you how to develop your sensory perception, your chi, and so that you can read other chi, and you'll be able to perhaps read your own family, your neighbors, passerbys, because once you have this ability, it is very difficult to turn off. And so that's why I rest a lot, because my mind is so busy with all of these other things and reading chi and energies that are always around us. It tires you. It really tires your mind, because once you've acquired this chi reading ability, it's kind of like Yoda and Obi-Wan Kenobi in Star Wars. We feel the disturbance in the force. Well, you won't be saying that, but he's like, oh, what just happened? Something happened somewhere, and you can feel it, and you know that it's happened. And then perhaps later on that day, you'll hear it in the news that something happened. And so those are kind of abilities that you can actually acquire through training and development. And I'm going to teach you and show you how to do that. It's not going to happen overnight. It took me nearly a year and a half just to get my first step, to go from where you are with no training to that first step. But once you hit that first step, it just exponentially grows. So thanks for joining me today. I hope you have some interest and that you're going to enjoy this next series that I'm putting together with my Jeet Kune training Trinity. Thanks for joining me today. We'll see you soon.